Hey everyone, this is Isaac Steincamp. I'm here with today's video, and I want to talk about how blunders happen. I had a particularly terrible Liberty Bell Open, to say the least, and it was tough for me to decide that I wanted to talk about it. But I think at the end, it'll give something for everyone, whether it's just psychology or just simple tactical miscalculation. Um, but yeah, it was a rather humbling experience. I thought with the upward trends that I had in New Orleans and New York, Philly would be the great grand finale that I wanted to be in. I really had, worked my butt off to make sure that, Philly, not only would be a good chance for me to play against people my rating and, have a good shot to show that, I'm ready for this trip, but then I'm going on to Europe. But um, also, I thought it would be a nice way to cap it off with a redemption in Philly, considering my World Open performance last summer. So, unfortunately, neither of those things came true. I finished 2 out of 6, 2.5 out of 7 if you include the last round bye that I had to take. And what can I say? This was particularly tough. I lost 3 games. I won 1 and I drew 2. But the way I lost in all 3 losses was in a particular fashion that was very unfamiliar to me, to say the least. And it's forced me to reflect a lot. This past week to think about like what I can do to improve, but also what can I take away from each one of these games that would be really easy to just put aside. What can I do to learn from this? And that was one of my motivations for doing this video, not just because like I wanted to talk about blunders and how they happen and why they happen, but also to an extent it forced me to reflect more on my own performance. Coming back from this tournament, it was hard to look at these games the first time, let alone a second and a third. But I'm here, and I want to talk about them. And for the most part, when I came back, I took a couple days off, and I told myself I'm going to do tactics, starting last week and go forward. Unfortunately, with my trip and everything, I've had a lot of distractions, and I decided, okay, let's just take some time off and focus on that. And I've started studying again, and things seem to be going great, which is good. But in the time that I was kind of taking a break, I also passively watched the Tata Steel tournament. And there was something Aronian said in round 8 that was particularly relatable for me, to say the least, which was that one of the comments he made after his win against Anish Giri, where he had this whole sack exchange and then Black's bishop went to A8 and White simply won that game, was that he had just come off one of the worst games he'd considered in his career against Sergei Karyakin. And on the commentary, Yasser asked him, like, what was your mentality going into this game? What do you think? And he told this folk story that I think also kind of applies to me in a sense, which was that there's this guy and he goes to this guru and he wants to become a master, and so he goes to the guru and says, what do I need to do? And so the guru tells him to go outside and stand there for 30 minutes and he'll get a special sign. And so of course it's raining and pouring outside and he's drenched, and after 30 minutes he's cold. He comes back and he's like, well, I feel like a total idiot, but like I didn't see anything. Now I'm just cold and wet. And he's like, well, the guru said, well, now that you you're an idiot, we can start the learning now. And that's kind of the approach I've had to take to this tournament, and going forward. And I'm hoping to get in some local tournament action between now and when I go to Europe, although that's not a guarantee. I'm looking into a quad in Virginia Beach or something, and just play some chess regardless of who I'm playing against, and leave on a high. So yeah, for me, this going over this stuff was tough. I decided to make it a video because I felt like writing a post about it, I would kind of lose the point in the analysis, and so I thought that it would be much more effective to go over in a video where I could kind of tie things together more effectively by theme. And so, yeah, I decided that that's how I wanted to do things today. So my first game I played against Brian Smith, who's a grandmaster, and the opening I got was actually kind of not only what I expected, but it was also, if I could pick any opening with White to play against a grandmaster, this would be the opening that I would choose. And unfortunately, I squandered this away pretty quickly, and we have a pretty typical Sicilian, reverse close Sicilian kind of position, where White is simply pushing on the queen side, Black is pushing on the king side. It seems dangerous, but in reality, there's really nothing here. And unfortunately, here, this was a sign of bad things to come. Now, I had woken up at, I want to say, 5 a.m. to make a train to get into Philly on time, and I definitely have to say that like I was not. I could definitely feel like I wasn't on top of things. That's not really an excuse so much as just like that was a decision on my part, and I should have just chosen to play in the 3-day schedule. But okay, I got a chance to play Grandmaster. But here I got to play F4, which I think is a mistake that any beginner can exploit. And what's the problem with this? Well, in my mind, I'd seen this pawn structure a lot before, except the main difference was this knight was on e2, and I think that kind of prompted me to play knight e2 quickly, not knight e2, f4 quickly, because the knight on e2 usually supports this as well as this bishop. And so I think knowing that structure worked, and feeling like, okay, this stops Black's counterplay, kind of told myself like, okay, like, this is going to work. We'll find a way for this to work, and it's fine. And so I had actually miscalculated here completely. I thought that, okay, after gf, I'm going to play king h1, bring the rook over, and ta-da, look at what we just did. But that wasn't really to be the case, actually, at all. And I had completely missed, well, I hadn't missed e takes f4. I'd seen this far. And the idea was after knight g4 hitting this knight, I could play knight d5, c6, and I thought I would actually be able to trap this knight after move like queen to f3. But the problem here, and you might already see it, is bishop to d4. And this was a long distance miscalculation. I was tired or whatever, but there were a couple things I can take away from this mistake now that I'm going over the game from the perspective of someone who is trying to learn from them. And the first one was, I felt like I needed to play f4 because I wanted to stop Black's counterplay, but in reality, this move isn't really that much of a strength for Black. In fact, it weakens the e4 square, so maybe I can bring one of my knights to e4. So actually, f4 isn't the only move that really needs to be considered here. And, as I said, I kind of forced myself to make this work on my mind, which is in a large part why I missed bishop d4. And that was already the first sign, of things to go wrong. But, when I was writing the comments on this immediately after the game, I was looking at the moves that I could make here, not even with an engine. I was like, well, almost any other legal move I could make here is fine. I could play a4, and this would be fine. I could play bishop b2, this could be fine. b5 is fine. I could even bring this knight back, and I would be fine. And so I have all of these possibilities that I could play here, but the fact that I felt like compelled to play f4 just because I wanted to stop this kind of like pawn storm from coming, which wasn't really a threat, to me that's already a sign of something that I can take away from this game that I can learn from. That we can whenever I'm looking, I need to especially in these cases where it's not quite clear what Black's play is, nothing is completely forced. I need to look at more than one move, regardless of what I know from structural ideas. And here it was unfortunate because if the knight were on e2, maybe f4 would work, but again, even there, they wouldn't really need to play f4. I could play a4 again. I could play b5, and things would be pretty simple. So this was already kind of like a sign of things to go wrong. But I went into round two telling myself, okay, I was tired, and it was a mistake for me to have played in the 4-day. I accept that now, but there's nothing I can do. We're gonna play, a 5-round tournament now. And I went into round two thinking, okay, I'm playing someone lower rated. I've got my fair chances, and I, to say the least, actually had a horrendous game in my second round as well. So I'm going to pull that up really quickly. Oops. I wound up getting this position as Black. And b2, b4 has just been played. And the idea is that, White wants to kick this bishop and, be able to expand quickly. And I had never seen this move b4 before in my preparation. Now, I played a line of the Italian as Black that I've never played before, and I think based on this game and the realization that there's a lot more theory than I thought there was, I might not play it again. I think in my round 4 game, we had this exact same position. I played h6, and I did totally fine. I should have just done that. But that being said, I hadn't seen this move b4 before when I looked over games because all the critical games had continued, like rook e1. I don't really want to get into theory, but, Black is doing fine. So my first thought was, okay, grandmasters aren't playing b4. Which is already not true, actually. There's a fair number of grandmaster games where White is playing b4. And so my immediate thought was, okay, there needs to be a way to refute this, or at the very least show that White doesn't play this in grandmaster games because Black can get an advantage, which was mistake number 2. So mistake number 1 was not knowing the opening. Mistake number 2 was assuming that my opponent's move is simply bad. And in reality, okay, if we put this pawn back on b4 for a second, White can make a plethora of moves that keep the equality and aren't immediately losing. And I think, for example, h3, and I think, there's really nothing objectively wrong with White's position to give Black an edge. So, those were 3 things going wrong into this move. And I spent 30 minutes on this move, believe it or not. And I spent majority of that looking at bishop e7, up until about the last 2 or 3 minutes of my calculation. Bishop e7 is the main line. It's perfectly fine. After bishop e7, the idea is actually pretty simple. We're going to be able to control the center. If he ever plays, if she ever plays b5, I play knight a5, and I can get the pair of bishops. So, White's problem now is that, where does this bishop go? Where does this knight go? Now that this pawn's on c3, there's really no clear play on the queen side just yet. And White is going to develop, Black is going to develop naturally. This bishop can come to f6, for example. This was a perfectly fine move, and had I played this, or had I just seen this position at face value, this would have been my automatic impulse move, and I would have been right. But again, I had told myself, there's got to be refutation, there's got to be something, and after spending about 25 minutes looking at bishop d7 and saying, okay, this is fine, but like white might even be slightly better, I'm not sure. I compelled myself to believe that there was a better move for black. And so I played this move, which is terrible, by the way, knight on d takes b4, with the idea that I could actually trap in this rook. So what just happened there? So in this position, I'm doing totally fine. In this position, instead of playing the most natural move, I convinced myself at the very last minute, and rather than spending the needed time I had to calculate, I got impatient with myself and just more or less played it immediately after I saw the idea. This is a not so great idea, and the reason is for multiple cases. One, my opponent played bishop g5, which I hadn't even seen at all, and this actually saves white from losing material, because after knight d2, there's not even knight takes b4 because of bishop to e7. So I actually had to resign here, which was a pretty sad way to end the game. But I was going over the game afterwards, and I was saying, oh, if I just seen this bishop g5 idea, everything would have been fine. I wouldn't have played this. But that being said, even this idea doesn't work, because already after knight takes d4, queen takes d4, the original idea that I had thought, queen d2, and actually my entire concept fails. I lose the queen, I lose the game, and this is losing just as quickly as I did in the game. So, wow, this was pretty bad. And we go back to the original position. Here, I'm doing totally fine, and it was, I had the right move calculated, and I just told myself, there's got to be better than this, and I convinced myself that was a tactic, and didn't really calculate it fully, which was kind of a similar problem I had in a later game, and I wanted to compare that really quick. And I'm not going to go in order just because I wanted to kind of compare themes, because it's going to kind of help it to become easier to talk about why blunders happen, especially at games over 2,000. Although these mistakes, it's hard to say that they're exactly for players over 2,000. In this position, I had white. This was my 5th round game. I was playing at 2,300, and my opponent's development is fairly awkward. I think white is better in this position. And so here, I spent a bunch of time calculating, and I found knight to e4. And my idea was, okay, if queen f5, I can actually take this. And the idea is that we're going to go into this long forced line. Oops. Takes queen, knight c2. I have to play king f1 because of this f2 pawn. Takes knight d6. This is important because now this bishop can't develop easily. And I'm down the exchange, but this knight is misplaced, this bishop is misplaced, this rook isn't in the game, and I can quickly play a move like d4. And I thought I would be sufficiently, I'd get sufficient compensation to make it even better. The engine says equality, but in these kinds of positions where you're down in material, but you have equality according to the computer, that's usually an encouraging sign. So had this had happened in the game, I would have been golden. But of course, this was not the case. And my opponent played queen g6. And against this, I had considered this move a3. This was my original idea when I played knight to e4. And I was recalculating this move here, and I freaked out because I realized that actually my entire calculation was incorrect because I had missed this move d5. And now things aren't so easy. So for example, the only move that I thought was considerable after d5 was d3. It was a forcing move on the queen. But here actually black has this really nice intermezzo move because I don't have time to take this queen. Both of these pawns are really weak, and this bishop will never develop fully. And I think, considering how bad black's position was a couple moves ago, this justifies his entire opening, which is not what I wanted to do. And in this position, if I take here bishop to e6, and I think black is not just better, but probably strategically winning because it's going to be really awkward to castle kingside. And black's pieces are going to quickly take over the d file. So this is something I noticed, and when I realized that a3 wasn't a possibility, I looked and I think I should have just played this move knight c3. But one of the hardest things to do in chess sometimes is to admit your mistake and go backwards. And in this position, I guess to explain how I wound up blundering on my next move at a rather elementary level is, in my mind, f5 is not a playable move because after knight to g5, I'm just going to put this piece on this outpost and I'm going to have a permanent advantage. But, it's still a forcing move. Whoops. And so here I played bishop d3, and my thought was, okay, I'll have a discovery, and everything is great, black is in trouble, and then he plays this move f5. And I realized immediately that, oh my goodness, I just lost another game really quickly. Because I completely didn't look at this move because I told myself that this isn't playable because of the weakness. But it's a forcing move. It's the first move that you really have to calculate to play bishop d3. Had I spent the extra time after realizing a3 didn't work and looking at bishop d3 and seen this, of course I would have realized what would have been happening. But simply by telling myself that this move wasn't possible, I continued to try to do things with a position that I couldn't. And I think if I played knight c3, yeah, knight to e4 was a mistake. But there's no reason to think that black is better here. In fact, I think the position is very much in the balance, which of course is not exactly what I wanted considering, how poorly my opponent played the opening. But again, here we have another psychological mistake where, I told myself my opponent couldn't do something, or I forced something to work because, positionally it would have been convenient. And yeah, after this position, I resigned because I realized that there's no way to get sufficient counterplay. So, for example, if knight g5 takes, it's only a pawn, and after a move like queen to f6, I already have very serious problems here. You could even play queen to f7. No, not queen to f7. But it would be really nice to put this knight back on f6 too. But I think he's going to have to resolve to knight h6. Anyways, so wow, this is also pretty sad. And again, I think that this is another, great example of a blind spot. I wasn't even looking at this move because I convinced myself it wasn't possible. And I think that, to an extent, that's got to be a relatable idea for a lot of people who've made blunders like this before. Is that we simply tell ourselves that these moves aren't possible. Don't look at them. In actuality, it's just a convenient truth that we tell ourselves and believe in. And so, yeah, tactics were not my friend at this tournament. I had one game though that I did want to share that I actually wound up winning, where there's a little bit of roles reversed. So I had black in my sole win, and this was in the third round, so it was immediately after that second game I showed you. And so, after this game was over, I was ready to tell myself, okay, first 2 rounds were a disaster. We're 1 out of 1. Tomorrow we're going to start out. That strategy almost worked, and we'll get to why that didn't. But this is how it is. Anyways, so in this position, my opponent played queen to a4 with the idea of bishop takes c6 and queen takes b4. So my hand is kind of forced. And so I played this move, knight takes e2. The idea being that if bishop takes c6, we have this intermezzo, and there's no reason to believe that black is worse because there's simply too many weaknesses on the king side, and we're going to have a long-term advantage. So, this was fine with me. So white can't take on c6. He played bishop takes d2. And here, I was expecting that he was going to play knight takes d2, knight to e7, and we were going to agree on a draw. Because after c6, it's really hard to find moves for white. There's really no easy way of moving forward. And meanwhile, if I can maybe play f6, I'm going to eliminate the central pawn. White doesn't really have enough targets for me to be better, so I think that this peters out to a draw, but by eliminating this potential backwards pawn from a rook c1 idea, I think I don't have any problems here. But my opponent played this move, bishop takes c6, and I noticed that this was a mistake that he had made that was very similar to the mistakes that I had made, so that we've talked about so far, was that he had convinced himself that I'm going to play b takes c6. And after knight takes d2, he's simply better. And I believe him, because already this pawn is hanging, so we play a move like queen d7. And if he brings, let's say, rook on a to c1, I think rook on f to c1 is also fine. This is a long-term advantage. He's going to pick up the c6 pawn. The c7 pawn's also backwards. I think white is going to go on to win this game. So he convinced himself that I was going to recapture this bishop, and he didn't really look at any other possibilities. And he was in for a shock when I played this move, bishop to f4. But I think when you have this position as black, it's a move that you're going to find quite easily, because you realize that if you play b takes c6 in the line that we just went over, you're statically worse. But I had already seen when I took on d2 over here that bishop to f4 was going to be a possibility, and now actually white is in a lot of trouble. He thought for a really long time and played bishop b5, and I was able to win the game after ideas like f6, busting open the king side and using this bishop pair to attack white. But the critical line, and I think the line he has to go for more or less, is bishop b7, and he was worried that after queen to c6, which is losing, bishop to e5, knight e1 is forced because he can't allow me to double his pawns on the king side. So knight e1, I'll play f6. If he plays queen e6 check here, for example, he realizes quickly that he's just got too many things to worry about at one go, and he's going to lose this game. So he can't do this. In reality, the computer says it's equal after bishop to a6, but I think I already have to move like b2. White is the one having to play defense, which is a huge turnaround in this game. This bishop can come here, put pressure on this knight, and maybe I might be able to play a move like f6, break open the center, get this rook in the game. Black is the only one with real winning chances, if at all, so this would have been a great moment for me anyways. So this was a positive moment, but I thought this was also illustrative because I noticed that the same mistake that I had been making so far in the tournament was also the same mistake he had made. He had convinced himself that I have to play a certain way and didn't really look in another way. And I think that, he wasn't USCF rated, he just had a FIDE rating of like 2050 or something, which I think converts to like 2150 USCF or something. I think that this kind of mistake is the same kind of mistake that I made, and it's really telling for, okay, maybe people over 2000s, they do have a lot of things in common when it comes to making mistakes. So, as I mentioned, I told myself after this round, all right, I'm 1 out of 1, first 2 rounds were terrible, but this is a different tournament now. I'm going to get a chance in the white pieces to turn things around, and I did get that chance, actually. So, in the game, my opponent just played this move, knight on f6 to d7, which I thought was a horrendous mistake. And here I spent 20-something minutes trying to make a move like knight takes f7 work, bishop takes e6 work. But then here, like, it's really hard. You know, you'd like to get your queen on c4. You'd really like to have your queen in f5, but there's not enough time to do it. Black's always going to get knight f6 in time, and white's going to find that he's just simply material down. So this isn't a possibility. And bishop takes h6. I found a nice line here for black, which was that this is a really nice move because knight f3 check is an important Zwischenzug. And if we trade, this is just simply losing now. So there was really nothing here on the king side, and I confirmed this with the computer. You know, during the game I was kind of frustrated because I told myself, oh, the computer's going to have something, sure. But okay, it wasn't practical to go for anything if I couldn't find anything. And so I decided to stay here with the old idea. You know, if your opponent is cramped, maybe the best idea is to simply just, you know, make sure that they suffer in their own space, and that's what I did. I played knight c4, which is fine. He played knight f8. Now we're on move 18. Time control is made on move 40. So I figured his best move in this position is to play knight back to d7. I played back, he played knight f8 and offered a draw. Of course I wasn't going to take it, but already I was trying to solve my problems that I thought were stopping me from being ahead. And I thought this knight was going to g6, which it does, actually. And so I played bishop to g2 with the idea that I'm going to be ready to play h4, h5 really quickly. So the game continued knight g6, bishop to e3. He played c5, and immediately here I realized that the line that I really wanted to work doesn't work because of bishop to f6. And actually this puts a lot of pressure on this pawn, puts a lot of pressure on this knight. If I play this move, black has no reason to be worried about being worse, and as you may have noticed, I actually had to sack a pawn to get into this position. I think black is just simply better. This pawn is probably more of a weakness than a strength. So the game had to continue. Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop f6, goes here. Again, I'm down a pawn. I had to really struggle to hold a draw in this endgame. I probably should have lost, but you know, it was a tough position to convert, not so easy, and it took engine-like precision. So kudos to my opponent. But let's go back. You may have noticed something I missed here. You know, my focus so much was on this king side, all these weak pawns. You know, is there a way that I can sack? You know, that's what we're always looking at. And part of the problem with this game was my full board awareness was here. I was only looking on this side of the board because common sense says, okay, well, all of his pieces are on the queen side. His king is vulnerable. Now is the moment. It's now or never. And so I spent all this time looking at the king side, and there was really nothing. But had I had spent, you know, time looking at the whole board, time looking at all the ideas, time looking at like the fact that my bishops are actually in really interesting places, I may have found this move. Rook takes a7. And the idea is that after rook takes a7, knight takes b6 is simply winning because his queen is trapped. This bishop covers all these squares, and the knight covers the last two. So the queen would have been trapped, and I would have won this game. I think. I would hope so. I mean, the way I played this weekend, who knows? But this would have been the blow I needed to put this game away. But, you know, by simply telling myself, the answer's on the king side, the answer's on the king side, his king is weak, where are the pieces? There's none. You know, I looked away from that for 1 second, and I wound up losing my whole advantage. And so, yeah, rook takes a7, the game is over. So here's another example of me telling myself, oh, wow, there's like a way to win the game. It has to be this way. And this is something that I think, you know, can go without saying for a lot of chess players, is that the moment when you start telling yourself things have to be, you know, a certain way, the rules don't, you know, the rules of chess don't say that you have to do anything unless it's a forcing move, check captures or threats. And in this case, you know, I don't have a forcing move on the king side. This is my forcing move, rook takes a7. And so this is, I would say, you know, a move that I could probably find if I were in a completely working zone. But, you know, just because I was looking in this square, you know, I wasn't able to find this, and I wound up, you know, having to hold a draw. And so, you know, that's the first 5 games that I had. I was 1.5 out of 5, which was pretty sad. And I had an interesting pick-me-up in the last round, so I thought it'd be instructive to share that. And so, let me pull up the PGN really quick. I had black again, and that's already not something that you want when you're trying to redeem yourself in the last game that you're going to play in a tournament, because I had to take a train to make it home, and I wouldn't be able to play the 7th round. And so I was playing black, and maybe it was the fact that I was already joking too much with myself about losing games in 12 moves, because frankly, on move 12, I played f4 and lost against Brian Smith, basically, and I had to resign on move 12 and my other 2 losses because I had simply erred so badly. In this position, I panicked because I thought for a second maybe I didn't play d5 at the right moment, and I played knight e7, which is inexcusable. For those of you guys who know the theory, I mean, you guys I'm sure know that this repetition exists, but also black can go for this and play against knight qp, and there's no reason to really be disappointed with black's play here. So, yeah, the knight takes d5 would have been a simple solution. But Here I decided to improvise and play knight e7, and I quickly realized after queen a4, holy smokes, I'm actually worse. And I actually had to consider king f8. That's how bad this position is. So for example, if I play queen d7, so queen d7, bishop b5, c6, takes. This is a very serious move, and I think that I might almost be able to be, in a resignable position. This is also a serious consideration, so that's no good. I did look at king f8, but the problem with it is that after queen b3, there's pressure here. This bishop is passive. This is coming. This is indefensible. So this is simply not a solution. And if I play a move like knight e7, well, I mean, this is not a happy move to make. This is coming. This is game over. And so, okay, bishop d7 is obviously the only move, which is what I played. And here, I mean, I can try to protect this b7 pawn, but if I play rook b8, this is going to win the game, I think. I mean, if I take, I don't have anything, for the uncastled king, and the fact I'm already a pawn down, there's nothing here. So I quickly played castles. And maybe it was the fact that I played it quickly and my opponent just thought I had something here. But queen takes b7 would have been a really nice way for him to finish things off. I think I have bishop f5. I'm going to pick off this pawn. Maybe he was worried about rook b8, but the thing is, this is going to be a long-term pass pawn. I can't let this, fester, and there's no way to win this pawn back. So this would not have been the way to go. So yeah, I castled here, and he decided that he wanted to attack and play knight d5, but that leaves this pawn weak. So I was like, okay, I'll keep on playing knight f5. Show me what you have. And here you play knight on d to f3. And I was getting very encouraged here because the last two moves, he could have done anything. But I think if he just castled kingside, if he doesn't take on b7, if he just castles kingside, there's no reason why I'm better, or able to recover. In fact, I think white is just simply winning. And so, with every passing move so far, I got really excited that white wasn't castling and told myself, okay, you actually have a shot. And this is white's only plan. So as long as I stop this pawn is going to blunt in this bishop. So things are going great. So I played rook to e8, and I have a trap here. If he plays d6, knight takes d4 is going to win the game for black. Bishop takes f7, king takes f8, and here he realizes way too many things are in trouble. This is the problem when you don't castle. If he plays knight takes d4, I'm going to take, and he's got problems. He's got to play king f1, and show me how white is going to win this game. In fact, black is now winning. It's simply too much to ask for white to try to recover in a position like this. So this did not occur. My opponent was not looking at this. And so one idea that I was looking at here was, okay, if he castles, I have to play knight d6 to stop this idea. I'm not going to trade here, but I'm slightly worse. I've accepted the fact I'm a pawn down, but I have a game. I mean, like, this bishop can come out to either here or here at some right moment. Maybe I can get some sort of activity. This b7 pawn is protected now because of the knight on d6. So I have some things to work with. So I thought castling would have been the best move. The next best move I thought was rook d1. And here I think, again, I have to play this move, and things get a little bit tricky. But he surprised me, actually, by playing queenside castles, which I think was the first real error for white. And the reason why is this king is now on a side of the board where I can create counterplay. So immediately, after some thought, I played pawn to b5, which resulted in bishop b5, queen b5, knight d5. So I've now gotten rid of a central pawn. I have active knights. And my opponent went into an endgame. And he missed a simple tactic here. So queen d7 goes here. I offered a draw here because I'm going to regain my pawn with an equal position. But he continued to play on with knight to b7. And so I totally get why white played on. I mean, like, I have the fractured pawn structure. White has nothing to lose. White can't easily lose this game. So it makes sense to play on, of course. Although I think that this was also a slight error because when I was going over the game, it would have been really nice if white had a knight on the board to attack these pawns. I mean, these are the true weaknesses for black. And without knights on the board, so we resulted in this position, it becomes really difficult to play against these two pawns, as we'll see shortly. So I thought in this position, I wasn't surprised if knight b7 was going to happen, but I thought this would have been a better route for white if he were serious about winning this game, and then king to f8 so I can move this rook. And I have to, this is something I would have to consider. Do I want to go back? What do I want to do? And I think white can still try to do stuff. It's not so simple. I'm going to play moves like king to e7. It's really going to be a matter of can I hold these two pawns. If I can't, I'm going to lose the game. So I thought this would have been the best way to go for white. But okay, he played knight to b7, and we reached an interesting rook ending that I thought would be a nice way to end today's video. And so here, white, made the mistake of entering this position, thinking that with simply more active rooks, this is going to be able to be a winning position, and it isn't actually. The idea was that after he plays here, he's going to quickly bring rooks on the 7th, and just be able to play Pac-Man Rook. But the problem is he really only has 2 entry squares, and I'm actually going to be able to, after king to f8, which is what I played, I'm going to be able to cover them quite easily. In fact, I had already made my plan here of how I was going to draw. I was going to play rook to e6, king e7, king f6. And once this happens, it's going to be really hard for him to make progress here on the 7th rank. As long as I don't move these c or f pawns, these rooks in the d file are actually quite not that useful. And so I played king to f8. He played here. I mean, if he plays rook d7, he's got the problem that I've got this move, rook d2. And, you know, he's got issues. You know, he can't let this happen. I mean, he could come back, but okay, I'm just going to come back, and, you know, what have we achieved, right? In fact, I'm the one making progress, because now I'm one step closer to building my little platform. So he didn't do this. He played rook on 1 to d2, which is, I believe, the best move. I played rook e6, continue with my plan. He played king c2. I think it would have been really nice for him to be able to get his king to the king side, but because I have control over the e-file, that's actually quite difficult. King e7, rook d7, king f6. So I've already started to achieve my position, and I'm just one check away, rook c6, from liberating this rook from b7. And here my opponent made a mistake that I think got me back in the game with some winning chances, which was this move g4, because now these dark squares are weakened. And so now he's always going to have to keep an eye, can my king make a run for it at the right moment? And so this is kind of a turning point. h6, h3, and I should mention here, I think g4 is also a mistake because I think already the position is equal, but like if I play like a pawn structure like this and have a pawn on h5, white can try to do everything he can to open up the h-file. And if he opens up the h-file, I think his winning chances increase. So I think just simply g4 kind of already encourages me to not do something I shouldn't do. So g4, h6, h3 to protect the pawn, rook c6, and here actually it's not so trivial where I want to bring this b7 rook. If we put ourselves in white's shoes for a second, white's going to play a move like f4, and he's going to have, you know, a nice little space advantage. He could play for f5 and try to create a grip, which I talked about in one of my endgame essentials posts previously. And so it's really important to stop this idea. And so I decided the easiest way to do that would be able to play this move, rook to b4. And the idea is that I'm going to simply bring my rook over and play against the backwards pawn. Now my opponent let me do this. He played a3 and went over. But okay, if he plays a move like this, I could come down if I wanted to. I could also trade. But okay, I think simply just coming down. You know, I risk nothing. As long as I'm also stopping this rook f5 check idea, I'm fine. And now f4 is not as bad. I can play g6, and I have no clear weaknesses. If he comes with the other rook, I can still do this if I wanted to, and I think I'm fine. And he always has to be careful that I'm coming over to the c file and mating him. So I thought, you know, this is totally fine. So I played rook b4, he played a3, and I come over. And at this point, I think I'm actually put my rooks on better places than his rooks are. This rook can't do anything because both of my king and my c6 rook are perfectly placed, and they're defending those targets. So this rook actually has minimal scope. And this rook is a passive defender. It has to stick to the f2 pawn. So I was really happy with my position here. He played king h2, and I played g6. It would have been really nice to have been able to play king to g5. But I also think it would have been really embarrassing to lose this way. This would have been a little bit awkward. And I didn't, you know, I didn't play a game that's tough just to lose like this. So I played g6, the idea being that now I'm threatening king g5, king h4. And I think if white tries to get carried away and doesn't play this move, he's going to wind up losing the game. So for example, if he plays like here, I'm just going to simply bring over my king, and practically speaking, this is going to be a long-term problem, this is going to be a long-term problem, and now this rook is free, thanks to the two weaknesses on the king side. And so I think, maybe lose is a harsh word, but I think the game has switched, so now white is the one having to play defense, and there's real winning chances for black again. And so, yeah, he didn't do this, of course. He played the best move on the board, rook on d7 to d5. I played a6. There's really nothing I can do here to improve my positions. I mean, all of my pieces are on the right places, and if I move any of my pawns, like for example, if I play here, I weaken f5 forever. And if I play here, I open up some potential avenues of play for white with a passed h-pawn. So a6 is the most logical move to play. There's really, again, not a waiting move here for white. If there were a waiting move, maybe things would have been okay. But like, for example, he can't move this rook because of the f2 pawn, and he can't move this rook off the 5th rank because I'm going to play king g5, king h4. So this is kind of a difficult position to play. b4 is a considerable move, but again, I could play a move like here, and this is a possible problem for him. So he played king to b3. I threw in this check, and he makes the only way to defend it. If he tries to get too carried away, I'm going to pick up this pawn and maybe even have winning chances. So he made the right decision, and we decided to repeat. You know, white, you know, for a second, you know, thought maybe he would be better, but he can't actually move the rook anywhere other than d5, because if he does, my king again goes through this hike, and you know, I have really serious winning chances. So we settled for this move repetition. It was move 39. We shook hands, and it was a draw. So this was a good way, I guess, to end a really bad tournament. I saved a game in which I thought I was totally busted. I talked myself out of thinking straight after playing d5 because I was worried maybe I'd forgotten something. And I guess the idea of losing on move 12 was such a prominent theme of this tournament that it played into my head too much. But now that I made these mistakes, I'm ready to go forward and work on it. I mean, clearly, there was a lot of psychological stuff going on, but it also wouldn't hurt to work on tactics going forward, for example. Um, but what can I say? I mean, it's really difficult to talk about chess psychology when I'm still trying to figure things out on my own. But I would like to think that like if I can I can overcome this, then I actually have a serious serious shot at breaking master, and it's really good. I think I figured this out now rather than like in the middle of my Europe trip. It's like exclamation point. So not exactly what I wanted from this tournament. I really thought that this was going to be my event. Shout out to players like Balin, who had a really good tournament, and Alex Katz, who was a former Chess Summit guest post author. They both had pretty great tournaments, and I thought I'd be up there with them, but it was just not my week. But if this tournament showed me anything, it's that I need to be mentally stronger, and chess is just like physics. Things don't have to pan out a certain way, because the moment we start saying have to, we start assuming like we're Magnus or something, and that's not a fair comparison. So, as Aronian said, now that I've shown myself, I'm an idiot, I'm ready to learn. So, I'm going to be working on my chess, my tactics, my everything between now and when I'm going to Europe, and I'm going to try to find some sort of local tournament. So maybe I'll have another tournament game to talk about by the time I post next week. Balin usually posts next week if you guys are familiar with the routine of the site, but because my flight to Europe leaves on the day that my post would be due, we've swapped dates for a week cycle. So that's, I'm posting next week. Balin will post on the 7th of February. I'll post on the 31st of January. And so I'm not exactly sure what I'll talk about. I have some ideas. There's some interesting opening ideas that I was maybe looking at. But of course, if you guys want me to talk about anything in specific detail, chess.summit@gmail.com is our email address. Feel free to email me and we can talk about things maybe through video or through a post, and I can try to get those questions answered. So as always, we're always looking for input as to what you guys want us to talk about here on Chess Summit. And I'm really looking forward to my next chance to play, whether it be here in the States locally or in Europe at the Dolomitan Bank Open in Austria. I can promise you my games will look a lot better than this. It's hard to go further down than this, I imagine. And so, I'll be working on my chess psychology stuff, of course. And I mean, again, like part of my motivation for coming out with this video was that I've also talked to some other people who have been close to 2100 or have broken 2100 and are stuck because they also feel like they have a similar issue and making master is kind of difficult. So I thought that talking about this and bringing it up would be an important part of discussing being master, which is what Chess Summit is all about. We have all these different authors trying to make master, and I think that this was something that the site would benefit from having been addressed, regardless of if it's at my own expense or not. And, we even saw this tournament in the game that I won. My opponent made the exact same mistake like I had been making my theme. And so I guess if you're ever in a moment of calculation and you find yourself telling yourself, I have to do this, I have to do that, look at all your fleecing moves. You don't have to do anything. You can walk up and get away. You don't have to stay at the ward. So there's a lot of things that you could do, and if you guys have any tips as well, feel free to tweet at us at Chess Summit or post on our Facebook page or on this video here today. I'm curious to hear your thoughts because I know that chess psychology is a dimension of chess that isn't talked about in literature, and so I thought this would be a great way to open up a forum to kind of discuss that. Anyways, this is Isaac Steincamp signing off for Chess Summit with another video for you guys, and I'll be back next week. See you guys.